Um, the Cold War. Hello to everyone. First of all, my name is María Fernanda López Armas, and this is my presentation for the exercise 10 of the Forum 3. And I'm going to talk about a very important event that can be described as one of the most important and crucial ones from the modern history. And this event is the Cold War, which can be described as the relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union after the end of the World War II. This period covered a little bit more than 4 decades, and these decades were full of political tension. But the most important and more remarkable thing that described this war was the production and the threat of nuclear weapons that could have been able to destroy the humankind. And as it says in the presentation, this period lasted from 1947 to 1991. And the concept of Cold War refers to the lack of armed conflicts between the two world powers during this movement. The two world powers were the United States and the Soviet Union, as I previously mentioned. So even though they were capable to create and produce nuclear armament, there were no real armed conflicts according to the military point of view. Like, there weren't any really big, dramatic and physical fights between them. But instead there was a lot of political, diplomatic and physiological tension, and this maintained the two nations aware and alert of any threat. Also during this period there were a lot of little riots that were caused by this movement, but there wasn't really any big fight between the two countries. So when talking about important events that took place during this period known as the Cold War, we can start with the Truman Doctrine, which was on March 12th of 1947. And this was when the President Truman promised to help any country facing a communist takeover. And then after this we have the offer of the Marshall Plan, which was an economic aid program offered by the United States to any European country. And this plan was rejected like right away by Stalin and the Eastern Bloc. But as a consequence of this, the aid was only given to Western European countries. And then we have the Berlin blockade that started on June 24th of the year 1948. In this blockade, all the roads and rails links were cut to Berlin, so it was isolated. And then in 1941 we have the NATO, which was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was formed in this year on April 4th. And the members of this treaty organization were Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Then moving on with more dates from this period, we have the Korean War, which began when North Korea invaded South Korea, and this was on June 25th of the year 1950, and it ended until 1953. Then we have the Warsaw Pact, which was formed with members like East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Albania, Bulgaria, and the Soviet Union. And another important part of the Cold War was the space race, which began on November 1st, when the Soviet Union carried like a dog in the spaceship Sputnik 2 to space. And this was a fight for supremacy in spaceflight capability, mainly between the US and the Soviet Union. And after this, on August 13 of the year 1961, the Berlin Wall was built. Okay, after this, on the year of 1962, in the month of October, we have the Cuban Missile Crisis, in which an American spy plane reported the sighting of the construction of a Soviet nuclear missile base in Cuba. And then on 1963, the assassination of the President Kennedy happened. And on July 1965, we have the Vietnam War and invasion. And then on May 26, 1972, we have the signing of the SALT, which was the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, and it was signed by the United States and the Soviet Union. Moving on, on November 9, 1989, we have the fall of the Berlin Wall. Then on October 3, 1990, the German reunification was made official. On July 1st, we have 1 year later, on 1991, we have the end of the Warsaw Pact, in which Allied communist countries ended the pact they had with each other. And on December 26, 1991, Russia recognized the end of the Soviet Union. Capitalism. For the next part of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about two economic systems, which are capitalism and socialism. So, in capitalism is an economic system in which the means of production and distribution are privately or corporately owned, and development is proportionate to the accumulation and reinvestment of profits gained in a free market, and it has become the dominant economic system in developed countries. As well as this, we can say that the prices and the production are determined by the market rather than the government. The property rights provide the freedom to produce goods and services they can sell. Okay, some of the major exponents or principal characters that represented this economic system were Adam Smith, John Locke, David Ricardo, and Thomas Malthus. And then moving on to socialism, we have that the key word for this is common ownership. And in this economic system, the resources of the world are being owned in common by the entire global population. So it consists of a society in which everybody will have the right to participate in the social decisions that affect them. So when we talk about production, we can say that it is directly for use of the human needs. So in socialism, we produce goods in order to satisfy the needs of our population, instead of like in capitalism, where we produce goods in order to sell them to a market and have a profit out of it. And to conclude, I will name some of the main representative exponents of this economic system, who were Karl Marx, Federico Engels, Robert Owen, and Henry Saint-Simon. And that would be it for the presentation. And as a conclusion, I want to say that even though the Cold War was a historical event in which there were no real battles or homicides in a big scale. For example, compared to all the damage caused by the previous world wars, the psychological and political situation was critical and was full of threats in form of up and downs that kept the humankind in a constant state of alert. And I think this was mainly because people knew what was to have a war in such a big scale or big magnitude, because maybe they were still dealing with some of the consequences of the world wars, and the least thing they wanted was to have another big scale war. And also this war was more like a concept of rivalry, because the two nation powers were in a constant fight for achieving discoveries and having more advances in fields like politics and technology and economy. A clear example of this is the space race that was mainly USA against the Soviet Union. And that would be it. Thank you.
USA and the Soviet Union. Well, I don't think the ones that were alive, like China and Cuba from the side of Soviet Union, became their enemies. I just think everyone followed their own path. Anywhere it was just soft power spreading. All that, and obviously weaponry run, right? So I don't think it took place in anywhere. I just think it took place everywhere. Okay, but not in it wasn't a land war. Well, general public, I think that question is pretty much launched and determined by it should be asked to North American society, because in Mexico we do not have all that memory or all that impact from the Cold War. So maybe here in Mexico we will have to ask to a really limited amount of people. But I think they would say that the impact that the Cold War had, the impact, right, is pretty small, even though it failed in Mexico, because all the production of goods and service took place here too, because actually United States needed to perform and grow their production. I think it was rockets, bombs, like atomic bombs, and gas, and all the traditional weapons, like guns and
grenades and
yes.
that thing. Okay, thank you.